filming the Maelstrom set for Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, the biggest action sequence ever attempted.
It all starts on a piece of paper and a napkin. Then 600 very talented men and women come in here and build all this.
We shot it in a warehouse that's the size of a small city, basically.
I've never been in a building where you have horizon drop off, just looking from one side to the other.
When you walk into that hangar, you've got the two main ships. You've got 3 or 4 other ships, and they're all sort of floating around 30 feet in the air.
This is the Super Bowl of the motion picture business right here. We had to design and we had to create this monster in 3 months.
It allowed for a scale that nobody had even thought of. When Gore saw it, he fell in love with it and realized, now I can do what my vision is leading me to do.
Look at that. That is a massive piece of sculpture.
We knew it's going to be huge, but until it was done and we walked there and we looked at the whole thing, it was pretty impressive.
And this was a sequence that went on for about 8 weeks. It was an enormous production.
Let's just take a moment to enjoy the fact that we will never make a film this big ever again in your life. It's the end of an era, my friend.
Good morning. 7:15 in the morning, Saturday, and we're going to move the Black Pearl.
It's probably the heaviest set ever moved.
As you may see, Effects has placed 8 air bearings underneath the set itself.
It'll float on air like an air hockey game, but upside down.
It's air bearings, less air pressure that's in the tire on your cars.
It's not so much moving it, it's controlling it. Once it gets in the air, it kind of wants to do its own thing.
We're going to use the forklifts as like little tugboats, and they'll just shove it along. So we're lacking water, we're lacking sails, and we're lacking wind, so this is Hollywood's way of moving a boat.
Right now, they shouldn't be tied to the mast. They should just be off the ship.
Gore's a strong proponent of trying to get practical elements on set, to get as much in camera as you can get, and then use visual effects where you really need them.
This cannon right here, let's have Tony hit that.
It's important to have real elements. As much as you can do real, the more realistic the final result will be.
Our function as special effects is if it moves or it's in the atmosphere, we do it.
John, so this is not bolted into any sort of floor?
No.
So when this thing tilts over, is there a counterweight or what?
Well, yeah, it's all built into it, yeah. It'll be fine.
I asked that very question. It'll be fine.
What we're kind of doing is just creating a lot of havoc. What we decided to do that has never been done before on any motion picture is put a tower at each end of the ship and be able to heave it up. We could heave it up 15 feet.
And then usually you're not going right straight into the wave, you're going to the side. So you can put a little bit of roll into that. Cool. And then it starts looking real.
It's our understanding that these 2 gimbals for the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman are the largest gimbals that have been built for the film business. To put it in perspective, just think that one ship weighs the equivalent of a 747.
Those big things there are the hinges that get put into here, basically like your very big Lego set, right? You gotta put it together, they attach the hydraulics.
The Pearl requires 1,000 gallons a minute of oil to make it run at speed.
These will supply hydraulic flow to both ships. About 1,000 gallons a minute.
That's almost 10 times the normal amount of oil that you would use on a motion base for a normal motion picture. We had 150 welders working 24/7. There's over 2,000 feet of hydraulic hose. There's over 1 million pounds of steel. This is unheard of.
Logistically, it's huge undertaking.
It's the most lights that have ever been used to light anything ever in the film business. It's like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
You have 2 boats that cover 700 by 700 feet square. So if you make it on such a big scale, you're ending up with 1,400 space lights and 10,000 amp generators and several miles of cable and building catwalks, putting air conditioning so stuff doesn't catch on fire. Theoretically, it's very easy to draw it on the paper, but to get it done. The guys did a remarkable job.
We have the potential here to generate about 105,000 amps of power. You could probably light a small city with that, I imagine.
We definitely want the first shot, they all come aboard there. But maybe we then kind of reset and take a few of these travelers and have a couple of guys and go a little thinner, just so we have...
Mix it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be 16 people every time.
Right, exactly. But
you have
16's nice.
When we're writing, we actually try to think of what would be a challenge to the stunt coordinator, or what would be a challenge to the CGI animators. What is something that they'd read, they go, I want to try to do that.
There's a lot of things going on. It's pretty wild. At first I thought, well, we can't do big battles on these ships when they're at a 30-degree angle, and we did. Rain, wind, smoke, debris mortars. All of a sudden you'll be doing the most finely tuned choreography and a piece of balsa wood will hit you in the side of the face.
Guys, sentimental night, last night on the Black Pearl, and I just want to say your spirit and energy made this whole thing come to life. I thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. I love you all, and God bless you.
What an audience doesn't see is how much time all these actors put in behind the camera. The sword fighting, the stunts, things that take weeks and weeks or months to prepare. It looks so simple when you see them clash with those swords, but everything is so choreographed and it's very difficult to learn. It's hard for an actor to stand in front of a blue screen or a green screen and try to recreate what's happening around them. So what Gore has created, he used the real wind, he used the real rain, he used the real ships. So the actor is really feeling and experiencing what the character would be experiencing. And that's what a director wants. He wants a real performance. These characters are feeling it.
This is how Cecil B. DeMille probably did direct. And when we did the sword fights, and there are 160 people sword fighting.
It's kind of brutal. From the first shot, you're pretty much wet all day long.
We'll be wet for 3 months.
It's torrential downpour and probably 75 knots of wind in this building.
I call it surviving.
They turn the rain on and you're drenched within about 10 seconds. It's quite challenging.
It certainly makes it feel real.
You can barely move, but you sort of have so much adrenaline on the day that you hopefully rise to the madness of the moment.
Brace of yours, you cack-handed dickhead! Dying is the day worth living for!
You have all these plans to act and maybe do it rather elegantly, and then they turn the rain machine on. The bad news is all your ideas go out the window. And the good news is that actually it's very authentic because you're in a maelstrom.
You're afraid to get wet. I just feel sorry for the crew because they're in it all day long.
In terms of whether anybody's angry at us, I just do want to go on record and say we did not add the rain.
The way we treat the blue screen is actually very tricky because we're putting so much rain out there that in certain angles this blue screen is completely obscured by the rain. But in the same time, if you are in the reality of this maelstrom storm, your visibility will be limited too.
There was a bit of a negotiation with Gore where he wants this very, very dense rain. I'm concerned in a shot like this, the dynamics are not going to be what you want, and then I'm going to be trying to get rid of it. I was concerned that the blue screen wasn't blue anymore, and at times it was going completely gray. I was always arguing for, could we just do a little less?
The very interaction of the rain hitting the masts and the rails of the boats and cannons and dripping from people's faces. I mean, it's the stuff you cannot reproduce. It's a tremendous amount of work for ILM. Fortunately, they're brilliant, and John Knoll is going to pull it off.
It's a wrap on the Pearl.
It's a wrap on the Pearl. It's kind of a wrap on the Maelstrom, isn't it?
You could say that, although we have a lot of work to do in post.
That final Maelstrom battle can't really be created without digital effects. And Gore has an amazing technical background in terms of having been a really accomplished special effects supervisor, and then also all of his commercial shooting before he ever went into feature filmmaking.
I like that camera shake you put in that Johnny shot. He looks a little soft.
When he's dealing with an effect shot at ILM and he's kicking it back for the 9th time because it's not quite right, the people he's talking with at ILM, he has the same knowledge base, and he can see things in a shot that an average director without that technical background wouldn't see, and it ends up making the movie that much better.
He's very tough on us on the composites and will bust us for very small cheats that we try and do. We'll make sure he stays sharp. We've been doing a lot of kind of water on the lens like this.
I like it. We should just dodge.
Yeah, keep his face clear.
Critical area. That's just going to make the whole thing so much better.
The whole thing is his movie, you know, and he's involved in every aspect of it. And just as he might worry about the production design of different elements, you know, he worries about or concerns himself with the visual effects.
The single biggest issue for us was the Maelstrom, to put enough detail into it, to have the motion look realistic, and that we had to do that for several hundred shots.
The two ships side by side at Palmdale, you know, they were rigged to move opposite each other, and there was a lot of worth in that, particularly with the way the people on the ships reacted and moved to a deck that was actually tilted and so forth, and having the rain come down, pouring. But when you were looking from one ship across to the other, it quickly became evident that the two ships didn't move enough separate from one another. So, you know, it became necessary to sort of eliminate the ship in the background and replace it with our CG, Black Pearl or Flying Dutchman, and people with characters, or to use an element of the real ship, but then cut it out and sort of add the right movement to it.
ILM put all their resources into finishing Pirates 2, getting it on time. So when you actually look at, like, okay, well, now we can start on P3, there wasn't that much time left.
We thought that the first movie had a lot of effects shots in it, and this is probably 3 times that.
John Noel and ILM had a really difficult task. In the third movie, there were over 2,000 visual effects shots.
Virtually everyone in the facility was working on the film at the same time. It was the first time that had happened at ILM since Return of the Jedi.
Do you feel this?
In Pirates 2, Davy Jones was the star, the character that we needed to integrate into many different scenes. And in Pirates 3, we had an additional star, which was the Maelstrom.
Yes, we've had Maelstrom!
Love this shot. It looks so real. It's a little bit with how the camera is animated as well, but it just feels like there are big waves out there and they're moving slowly. And there's no water here. There's just a plate in the foreground. There's nothing. The tricky part was actually how to make the whole Maelstrom spin around.
We've looked at a lot of, you know, big wave anomalies. We've looked at, you know, 60-foot waves, studied how water moves and how it accelerates as it kind of comes up to the lip. And we're just, you know, trying to create something that we buy, that we believe.
When you see a wave, there's this incredibly complicated thing going on. It's not a simple process. You've got all the water molecules and everything is kind of interacting, and it's creating foam and spray and mist, and all sorts of chaos is happening. We at ILM have a team working at Stanford, and we've used those guys to try and analyze those kind of problems and come up with solutions. How do you create water? And it required a massive amount of computing time. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. It's not just something where you go, yeah, you know, that kind of looks okay. You know, it doesn't really work like that. You're trying to create this iconic moment in the movie.
That's a good example right there. You know, the ship that takes the inside lane is moving faster and getting an advantage on the ship that's got the outside lane. So the water itself has to be moving faster inside than outside.
You can sort of see that the Black Pearl is going closer in, or more towards the center, where there's a faster band of water. Now that was, of course, very hard to simulate.
And they've had to go back and rework the Maelstrom, keeping in mind that, you know, there's a story to be told here.
What's happening in the foreground is pretty complicated as well. There's a gigantic battle happening between the crew of the Black Pearl and the crew of the Flying Dutchman. So we have computer-generated characters in the midst of lots of rain and atmospherics and splintering wood. And so these things are kind of difficult to integrate and make them really look like they're present.
During the Maelstrom sequence, Captain Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones engage hand-to-hand combat on the top of the yardarms of the big Flying Dutchman vessel. Johnny Depp and a stunt guy portraying Davy Jones actually fought hand-to-hand on a portion of a set they built, basically a yardarm as well as a crow's nest. That allowed Gore to direct the action as well as create most of the camera moves on set. We then took those shots and then fleshed out the world around it. Sometimes we retained almost everything they shot from the set pieces, the yardarm and the crow's nest. Sometimes we replaced them completely. We always kept Johnny Depp's performance because it's really important that the audience see him acting and engaging with Davy Jones up there. But it definitely was a challenge to try to build this world around them as well as make it all believable.
When that shot starts, it starts off as a completely digital shot.
We start with a digital version of Johnny Depp at the beginning of the shot, primarily because the camera move was so long and extensive. So we do a transition from our digital Johnny into our practical double right there. So before this rigging piece flies across camera, this is our digital Johnny Depp, and as soon as it flies past, then it becomes Johnny Depp on set. And everything else is computer graphics. So we even replaced the yardarm that they were standing on set because it was easier than trying to integrate our model with it.
There's a little series of shots coming up next, and we've taken one of our guys and made a little story. These were the shots where we had some guys just kind of laying around doing nothing in the background. So we've got that guy there. He's got a sword stuck in his back, and he's trying to get at it, and then he pulls it out. And nobody's ever going to notice it except on the DVD, but he's fallen back there. No, it's fantastic. He gets up, he's trying to reach that hilt behind him, and then he finally gets it out just before the cut on this shot. So I don't think anybody's going to see it. It's better than just a guy laying on a cannon, that's for sure. Great.
The schedule is really what made everything 100 times more difficult. Just trying to get that level of complexity and that number of shots through the pipe in the amount of time that we had. It was really challenging.
It looked pretty much impossible. I was really worried that there was no way to get this done in time, at least not looking good. There were a lot of sleepless nights, there was a lot of worrying, a lot of strategizing about how we're going to do this. And the crew really worked very hard. They poured their souls into this.
It'd be too late to on the course now, matey!
The really exciting thing, I think, sometimes about working on the big scale, the Bruckheimer, the Gore Verbinski movies is the scale of these things, that you can have these amazing moments in a movie where just a tremendous amount of effort has been put into this one moment and the richness of that moment.
I think it feels like you're actually there. It feels like this was done in camera, but in fact, it's a melange of all those things. Little bits and pieces of it are in camera. A lot of it is digital effects, and the intersection between those two is basically seamless. It's a testament to Gore and John Frazier and Dariusz Wolski, the director of photography, and the whole effects department. I mean, these guys are winning Academy Awards for a reason, and it's just amazing what they pulled off on those stages.
The success of a picture is because of an enormous amount of people who work very hard on it. It's not easy to do. When it's done well, it looks easy.